Loneliness has a way of growing heavier as the years pass. What once felt like a quiet evening can suddenly feel like a room filled with echoes, memories of people who used to call, footsteps that no longer walk through the door, routines that once gave us purpose. But Buddhist wisdom gently offers another way of seeing this experience. Loneliness isn't the enemy. It isn't a flaw in your life or a sign that something has gone wrong. It is a signal from your inner world, a soft knock reminding you that the heart is entering a new season. And the truth is simple, yet profound. What hurts us is not being alone, but the relationship we form with that aloneness. Buddhism teaches that no emotion arrives without a cause. Everything appears due to conditions, including loneliness. And in the later chapters of life, those conditions naturally shift. Children grow into their own lives, friends drift into distance or memory, the body slows, the days quiet down, and the mind begins to look inward more often than outward. Modern society interprets this as loss, less noise, fewer people, fewer roles to play. But through Buddhist eyes, this period is not a collapse, it is a transition. A kind of spiritual twilight where the outer world becomes softer so the inner world can become clearer. It is not punishment. It is ripening. Much of the suffering we associate with loneliness comes from comparing the present with a past we refuse to release. The mind repeats, I used to be needed. I used to be busy. I used to be surrounded by others. And in gripping those memories, we freeze ourselves inside time that no longer exists. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from clinging, holding tightly to what has already changed. Impermanence is not meant to scare us. It is meant to free us. Everything flows. Everything transforms. And when we stop fighting the flow, the heart begins to lighten naturally. A powerful shift happens when we stop saying, I am lonely, and instead whisper, loneliness is present right now. In that small change of language, the emotion becomes an experience, not an identity. The self is no longer wrapped inside the feeling. We are simply observing the mind's landscape with kindness. And from that place of awareness, loneliness loses its sharpness. It becomes less like a wound and more like a messenger. When viewed through this lens, loneliness transforms into an invitation, an opening to explore the parts of ourselves we have ignored while life was busy pulling us in every direction. It becomes a doorway back to inner familiarity, to remembering who we are without roles, expectations, or noise. Learning to be at home with yourself is not isolation, it is liberation. It is the first step toward genuine peace, the kind that doesn't depend on who stays or who leaves. If this reflection speaks to something inside you, feel free to share one thought below. What is loneliness teaching you in this chapter of your life? Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And if you'd like to walk deeper on this path together, consider subscribing for more gentle Buddhist guidance. If loneliness feels sharp, it's often because we've drifted away from the one companion who never leaves us, our own awareness. There is a quiet truth hidden beneath the ache. Loneliness grows louder whenever we abandon ourselves, whenever our attention is scattered everywhere except the present moment. Buddhist wisdom teaches that the cure for loneliness isn't more people, more noise, or more distractions. It is the simple return to presence. When we come home to ourselves, the heaviness begins to soften, and the heart remembers its own warmth. One of the most powerful ways to reconnect with that inner companion is through mindful breathing. Sit comfortably. Place a gentle hand over your heart. Breathe in slowly, without force. And in your mind, whisper, I am here for myself. These words may seem small, but they send a deep signal to the nervous system. You are safe, you are supported, you are not abandoned. The body relaxes. The emotional storm settles. The mind stops running ahead or reaching back and begins to rest in the simple miracle of this moment. Another essential practice is observing your feelings without judgment. Instead of declaring, I am lonely, try acknowledging, loneliness is present. This subtle shift removes the emotion from the identity. You are not loneliness. You are the awareness holding it. When we stop labeling ourselves with the feelings that pass through us, we stop being controlled by them. The moment judgment falls away, compassion enters. And when compassion enters, suffering loses its grip. Loving kindness meditation, or metta, is another deeply healing tool for moments of loneliness. Close your eyes, breathe softly, and offer these gentle wishes to your own heart. May I be peaceful. May I be healthy. May I feel loved. May I be free from loneliness. These phrases are like warm hands cupping the soul, reminding us that we are worthy of tenderness even when no one else is around. When directed inward, loving kindness dissolves the harsh inner voice that insists we are lacking or incomplete. It restores a sense of belonging within ourselves. As the heart softens through these practices, something quiet but profound occurs. Presence begins to replace emptiness. Loneliness fades because it cannot exist in the same space as mindful awareness. And as we grow more anchored in ourselves, other people naturally feel safer around our energy. We listen more deeply. We smile more easily. We become someone who radiates calm. Not because life is perfect, but because we have stopped abandoning our inner world. This is the gentle paradox Buddhism reveals. To overcome loneliness, we don't need to add more people to our lives. We need to add more presence to our moments. When we return to ourselves, connection blossoms effortlessly, first within, then outward. There comes a moment in life when happiness no longer depends on the same things it once did. In youth, joy often rises from the people around us, the roles we play, the recognition we chase. But as the years ripen, something shifts. Solitude stops being an empty space to fear and begins revealing itself as fertile ground, a quiet garden where wisdom, clarity, and a softer kind of joy can grow. Buddhist teachings remind us that true contentment is not built on constant activity or external affirmation, but on the ability to rest deeply within ourselves. A meaningful shift begins when we stop asking, "Why am I alone?" and instead gently ask, "What is this moment offering me?" This question changes everything. The first keeps us trapped in resistance, comparing now with then, wishing the present looked more like a memory. The second invites curiosity. It opens the door to insight. When we approach solitude with openness rather than fear, it transforms from a void into a teacher, one that speaks quietly but truthfully. One of the simplest ways to find joy in solitude is through mindful appreciation. Notice the warmth of sunlight touching the window, the softness of your pillow in the morning, the small miracle of breathing in and out without effort. Pay attention to the flavor of your tea instead of rushing through it. These moments are often overlooked because they seem ordinary, but they contain the seeds of deep peace. When we learn to savor them, gratitude naturally blooms. Another powerful practice is letting go of comparison. Happiness fades the moment we start measuring our present life against a version of ourselves that no longer exists. When we stop saying, "I used to," we free ourselves from an invisible burden. The Buddha taught that freedom arises when we stop clinging to what has already passed. The present moment may be quieter, smaller, or simpler than the past, but that simplicity can be a blessing when met with acceptance. Solitude also makes room for reconnecting with the whispers of the heart, interests we once loved, hobbies we set aside, gentle pleasures we never had time for. Maybe it's tending to a plant, listening to soft music, writing in a journal, or watching the sunrise without rush. These small joys are not distractions. They are pathways back to ourselves. They help us remember who we are without roles, achievements, or expectations. At the core of Buddhist wisdom is the reminder that peace comes from within. Our social identities, parent, partner, provider, are temporary garments we wear. But beneath them is the truer self, unchanging in its capacity for kindness, clarity, and compassion. When we sit alone in quiet satisfaction, we touch that deeper nature. Solitude, when embraced with awareness, is not emptiness. It is spaciousness, a wide, calm field where joy can take root again in its simplest, purest form. If this reflection speaks to your heart, you're welcome to share one small joy you've rediscovered in solitude. And if you'd like more gentle Buddhist guidance, feel free to subscribe and continue walking this path of inner freedom with me. Loneliness can feel like a wall, quiet, tall, and impossible to climb. But in Buddhist wisdom, compassion is the bridge that allows us to walk across that wall with ease. Loneliness grows when we wait for others to reach out first, when we believe connection must come from outside. Yet the heart begins to heal the moment we choose to offer ourselves, gently and without expectation. We don't break loneliness by being chosen. We break it by choosing to show up for others. The first principle of compassionate action is giving without expecting anything in return. It doesn't require grand gestures or deep conversations. Sometimes a warm greeting, a small smile, or a simple, "How are you today?" can shift the entire tone of a moment. These little gestures carry an energy of openness, and people instinctively respond to that. When you share kindness freely, you remind yourself and the world that your presence still matters. You still have something meaningful to contribute. The second principle is showing up with full presence. Many older adults feel disconnected, not because there are no people around, but because the mind is still living in memories. When we interact from a place of being half present, listening with our ears but dwelling in the past with our thoughts, connection becomes shallow. Instead, look gently into someone's eyes. Feel your feet on the ground. Let your breath anchor you. Listen not to reply, but to understand. Presence is a rare gift in a distracted world, and offering it creates an immediate sense of closeness. The third principle is nurturing a small circle of community. This circle doesn't need to be large, it only needs to be consistent. A weekly cup of tea with a neighbor, a meditation group, a book club, volunteering a few hours at a local temple, library, or charity, teaching a younger person something you know well, gardening, cooking, stories, or wisdom earned through life. What nourishes the heart is not the number of people, but the regular rhythm of meaningful contact. Small circles often become the strongest ones. As these compassionate actions accumulate, something beautiful begins to unfold. The belief that I no longer matter starts to dissolve. The heart feels lighter because it is engaged rather than isolated. People naturally gravitate towards someone who radiates warmth. Compassion softens your energy, and others sense that softness instantly. You become someone others feel safe around, not because you try to impress, but because your presence is grounded, kind, and real. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, removes one brick from the wall of loneliness. Eventually, the wall is no longer something that traps you. It becomes something you walked through, one gentle gesture at a time. Loneliness often hides in places we rarely look. It doesn't always come from the absence of people. It often comes from the weight of memories we haven't released. Buddhist teachings describe emotional burdens as a hot coal. Even if we plan to throw it away someday, as long as we're still holding it, it continues to burn us. Many of the feelings that intensify loneliness in later life come not from the present moment, but from the past we continue to carry. Quiet regrets, old identities, expectations that were never fulfilled, or words we never had the courage to speak. As we grow older, life naturally asks us to set down certain roles: the devoted parent, the reliable worker, the provider, the caretaker. These identities shaped our worth for decades, and letting them fade can feel like losing a part of ourselves. But these roles were never the whole story. They were chapters, not the book. Alongside them, we often hold on to emotional residues, expectations we placed on ourselves, moments we wish we could rewrite, mistakes that linger in memory, or disappointments we quietly carry. all these fragments accumulate, forming an invisible weight that deepens the sense of isolation. Buddhist wisdom offers gentle ways to loosen this burden, beginning with the truth of impermanence. Everything changes: roles, relationships, abilities, and circumstances. Impermanence is not a threat, but a door to freedom. When we recognize that life is always moving, we stop trying to keep it frozen the way it once was. The past cannot be reclaimed, but it can be understood, honored, and released. Self-compassion plays a vital role in this release. Many older adults look back with a harsh lens, judging past decisions with the wisdom they gained only later. But compassion invites a softer voice. I did the best I could with what I understood at the time. This simple acknowledgement is a balm to the heart. It turns guilt into learning, regret into clarity, and self-criticism into kindness. Forgiveness is another path to liberation, not for the sake of excusing others, but for the sake of freeing ourselves. The Buddha taught that holding resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for someone else to suffer. When we forgive, we release the grip of old stories. We allow the heart to rest. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is choosing peace over the endless retelling of pain. To stay rooted in the present, mindfulness becomes a gentle anchor. Each time the mind drifts back into what was, return softly to the breath. Feel the rise and fall. Let the body remind you. This moment is real. This moment is safe. The past may visit, but it does not have to become your home. As Buddhist teachers often say, the past is a teacher, not a place to live. And when we finally loosen our hold on what once was, something remarkable happens. The present begins to breathe again. New possibilities appear in places we thought were closed. The heart becomes lighter, more spacious, ready to experience life as it is today, not as it used to be. In letting go of the weight behind us, we make room for the life waiting quietly in front of us. There is a quiet misunderstanding in our culture that growing older means slowly fading from life. But in Buddhist wisdom, the later years are not a descent. They are a ripening, a season when the fruit of a lifetime finally grows sweet, when storms have passed, roots have deepened, and the soul has gathered enough experience to understand what truly matters. This chapter of life is not the end of the journey. It is the time when insight, peace, and inner richness come into full bloom. It is the season of becoming. To build a life filled with meaning and serenity in this ripened stage, we begin with stillness. Simple rituals, 5 minutes of slow breathing, a moment of morning meditation, sitting quietly before the day begins, are like water nourishing the inner garden. You don't need to force enlightenment. You only need to return to yourself again and again. These small acts of presence settle the mind, strengthen the heart, and open a gentle doorway into peace. Another pillar of meaning is sharing your wisdom. Younger generations carry more information than ever, but far less guidance. They do not need perfect answers. They need someone who listens without judgment, someone who has walked through life and understands its twists and contradictions. Sharing a story, offering a gentle perspective, or simply being a calm presence in someone's moment of chaos can become a profound gift. In giving your wisdom, you continue to live within the hearts you touch. Gratitude is also a powerful source of spiritual fulfillment. The Buddha taught that a grateful mind is a peaceful mind. When we pause to appreciate sunlight on the floor, the taste of warm tea, the laughter of a grandchild, or the steady beat of our own heart, life becomes rich in ways that have nothing to do with achievement. Gratitude transforms ordinary days into sacred experiences. It draws our attention away from what is missing and toward the quiet abundance already present. And then there is compassionate connection, the understanding that every interaction, no matter how brief, can be a planting of kindness, a patient smile, a soft word, a moment of genuine interest. These are small acts with enormous spiritual weight. The world doesn't require us to be busy to be useful. Sometimes the most meaningful contribution is simply the warmth we bring into the spaces we enter. The deeper philosophy beneath all of this is simple. Stop fighting the flow of life. When we resist change, we suffer. When we soften into what is unfolding, freedom emerges. Presence, calm, grounded, open, is one of the greatest offerings you can give to yourself and to the world. And remember this, you are not walking this chapter alone. Many hearts travel alongside you, seeking the same peace, the same clarity, the same gentle return to themselves. True peace is not found in how many people stand beside you, but in how awake your own heart is. If this message nourished you, feel free to subscribe for more Buddhist reflections and gentle teachings. Let's continue walking this path of inner stillness and meaningful living, together, one mindful breath at a time.